So if you're stuck at that $1 million point with your HVAC business, you're going to want to stick around to listen to this one. This is going to be good.
Welcome to HVAC Greatness, your weekly source for HVAC business excellence. By subscribing and tuning in here, you'll get insider access to proven strategies, tips, and insights for the HVAC business owner who's tired of the stress and frustrations and struggles that are common to HVAC. Let's redesign your new, highly organized, and hugely profitable HVAC business where being an owner is fun again.
So today we've got a special guest. It's Kelley McKay over at Service HQ, and he's been in the business for a long time. Let me tell you a little bit about Kelley. In 1996, Kelley got married and went to work for his father-in-law, who, guess what, owned an HVAC company. In 2008, he started his own HVAC business. Now he enjoys sharing what he's learned through many formats. He's got a YouTube channel. It's called HVAC Millionaire. He's written 2 books, Go Make Money, and also Busyness to Business. Both of them are available on Amazon. Kelley has an online training program at www.hvacserviceready.com where he helps service technicians advance their careers and also business owners grow their companies. He's a certified performance coach, which allows him to help people to gain more clarity, courage, energy, and influence in their lives. He's also the co-host for podcast HVAC Uncensored. So he is on a mission to help 500 business owners grow their companies to $1 million in revenue so they can begin to reap some hard-earned benefits from their works as well. So, Kelley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
Okay.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. You know, I feel like I'm kind of speaking into the mirror here because our backgrounds are so similar. Except I didn't work for my father-in-law. I come out of the military, but I started mine back around the time that you were getting ready to that you were working with your father-in-law.
Sure.
And,
well, you're lucky. You're lucky you didn't have to work for your father-in-law. So that didn't last too long.
I can imagine. Well, so let's say 2008. So what? Over 20 years now? Is that right?
Yep, 23 years. Makes it easy to remember how long I've been married. August 10th. August 10th. I think we'll be married 23 years. August 10th. So
yeah.
And that's how long I've been in the business.
That's how long you've been in the business. Yeah. I mean,
yep.
If you miss that one, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So, you know, HVAC business is not easy. I mean, you know, you've been through a lot, and I have as well. If you don't mind, just talk to everybody and tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you've experienced in growing your HVAC business. Anybody can start one, but what does it take to get it to a size like you are?
Sure. And I don't want to, we're not too big yet. I mean, I feel like we've done very well in the market that we're in, but we're at $1.5 million. We're shooting for $2 million this year. I think we're going to hit it, but it's taken an awful lot to get to the point. You know, one of the main, I always have little goals set, and everybody should have some type of a goal. But like one of my goals was just to be able to wear nice jeans to work. Because I always had, like, you have your nice pair of jeans and your nice pair of shoes, and you didn't wear those till the weekends when you went out to eat with your wife or your family. And that was one of my big goals, just to be able to wear nice jeans to work. So I finally got that. But I just underestimated what it took. You know, I was a good service technician, very solid service technician. Didn't have a whole lot of installation skills. It's something I had to learn. I nervous. I had a lot of anxiety before every time I'd have to do a job that I sold. I had a lot of anxiety leading up to that job until I finally found somebody to kind of run the installation department. But I really just flat out, I just because I was good at what I did, I thought, hey, I can just go run a business. This is going to be easy, right? And that was not the case.
I can totally relate to that because I come from a service background as well. And those installations were a bit of a challenge because I don't know. I think there's a mindset where we kind of have to think, we really need to be the best in every facet of our business. And a lot of times we're still in a progressive point in our learning career, our learning curve. But by the same token, we don't have it all, worked out yet. So no, I remember my first replacement as well, and where I went out there and did the design and everything else. But I'm like you, I got a little bit of help and ultimately hired somebody was better than me. So you still
Yeah.
implement today where you're hiring people better than you are, so to speak?
Oh, yeah. I mean, our installs used to take a day and a half, always like a day and a half. And it might be just 2 hours, but you know as well as I do that if you've got to go back to a job, you might as well count a half day gone. And so we immediately, once we had somebody with the right skill set to do installation, all of a sudden we're getting done with jobs, full system jobs at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. It's like,
Wow.
like it blew my mind, because I didn't think it was possible.
Well, that brings up two questions. Number one, now I think you're in the Wichita, Kansas area. I believe you mentioned. Is there a lot of travel time? So if you leave a job, does it cost you a lot of travel time to have to come back and obviously setups?
I mean, it's about 15, 20 miles to Wichita, and we're not in Wichita every day. We're in our little town. The little town that I'm in is Augusta, Kansas, and there's about 9,000 people here. So it's a really small town. But there's a lot of small towns surrounding us as well that we take care of all of just the county that we're in.
Right. So the typical drive time might be anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour, maybe somewhere, just guessing.
Yeah, I would say average 30 minutes.
Cool. Well, there's a lot of people that are in, I guess, more remote areas and even have longer drive times than that. And then there's the ones that are, literally as the bird flies a mile away from the job, and it takes them 30 minutes to get there because they're in these highly dense cities as well. What about what type of systems do you guys work on out there? Is it like
Sure.
pier and beam construction underneath the house, up in the attic, basements? What do you have?
We have it all. It's really a mixture. A lot of basements though, but we have horizontal systems in crawl spaces, and horizontal or upright or upflow systems in attics, or downflow systems in a closet, or package units. A lot of package units. Not a ton, but we're doing a package unit installation on Wednesday. So
right.
We have a good mixture of everything.
A lot of natural gas, heat pumps, that type of stuff.
Oh yeah. Primarily, that's what we see.
And did you develop systems for each of these different, do you have a formalized system for the basement setup versus the attic versus the crawl space, or are you guys pretty much well-versed and just go in and attack for anything? That's
a good question. I know that we should have a specific formalized system for that, but we don't. We have like the setup and the tear down, and always just the stuff that can really save you a lot of time is just every time you make a trip to the truck, you better have something in your hands that you're finished with to go take back to the truck, and cleaning up your mess, in between, not just waiting until the very end of the job to clean up. All these things save a lot of time. So we have all those fundamentals, but not really formalized. I mean, but it works very well for us. It's not that we may not have to tweak that in the future.
Yeah. Well, I just was wondering if it was so complex for you that would be the case, or your guys are just used to it. But that's awesome. Yeah, that's fine. Sure. I mean, it depends on. But I think you make a really good point. I can remember being so frustrated going down to the vehicle. Everything you have to do to get through it, getting all the way back up to the job. Maybe it's on the rooftop, in the attic, whatever, and then realizing you forgot, a 90-degree PVC elbow or something,
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, efficiency is really important. Sure.
Yeah. And on the efficiency side, what really saved us a ton of time, energy, and money is just having a proper checklist. When we go to, when a comfort advisor or a selling technician goes to a job and he, evaluates the entire system, he's got a checklist to go off of. And we do use that. And we make sure that the vans are stocked. So putting those systems in place first, I think, can really save somebody a lot of time if you don't already have those. Just having a van stock list that's gone through a couple of times a year at the minimum, and having a checklist for installs. That way you are always prepared, because what would happen to us is we'd start getting to jobs and we're finding like, oh, well, we need a 6.4, we need a 6.5 reducer for this flue, and it's not on the checklist, and that's not a stock item. So we'd find ourselves having to run 20 miles to go get a, 6'10", or a 6'4",
Right.
that kind of stuff. So
yeah, the odds and ends stuff. But so that brings in a situation where, I sound like I'm talking to a younger version of me, because we had the same thing. We had a system where the comfort consultant, comfort advisor would literally basically lay the entire job out. They were structured. But you know what that requires, and I'm assuming that's your case as well, is the person that's out doing the sales process really has to have had the experience and be able to work at this level. Because, you can't just hire a salesperson and have them lay a job out, can you?
No, not unless they have, some background in it and they've done it for a while. But
Right.
so that's just comes with time. It's usually, we just have selling technicians at the moment. I don't have any comfort advisors. So we do our best to make sure to send the right person to the right calls, just not just the estimates and quotes, but to the right calls as well, just to be sure that we're maximizing those calls anytime possible. So
Yeah. I know we have a little process like in our dispatching where, there's questions that are asked in which he or she knows who to send, not just maybe a 15-year-old system, then we need to send a good communicator out there because it's going to be a sale, but also technically maybe sending a guy who doesn't have oil furnace experience out on an oil furnace, or somebody who's really needing some work in heat pumps and sending them to a heat pump job versus somebody that's you're trying to operate in efficiency, and somebody that's gonna get in there, get the job done, and get out and get on down the road, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We've all had those people on our team. I'm sure at one point or another, you've either worked with them and they're just all about fixing everything and never giving any options to the customer when it might not make sense to go ahead and keep dumping money into a 15-year-old system. So it's just
my boss wanted us to charge thousands of dollars. I could do this for $500 on a 20-year-old system yet, but
right.
My boss is going to rip you. Yeah. Takes programming, but ultimately, isn't that our responsibility as the owners?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of my jobs, is to make sure that I can communicate the reasons why. Why do we do this? Why are we're not all about sales. We really aren't. We're about service, just like Joe Cresera's. I just actually found Joe on it was like Summit, and he was one of the speakers on there, and I bought that where he could have access to all the speakers. And so I'd only known about Joe for like a year, but I love his stuff. So, but anyhow, it's about service. It's about just serving your customer at the highest level.
It is. And to those of you, just so you'll know, we were talking before we started recording, Joe Cresera, he owns I think it's contractorselling.com, and he teaches a style for the selling technician. And this is kind of cool. He takes, your typical contractor can bill out roughly $250,000 a year per service vehicle-ish. He's saying he can double, triple, quadruple, 5 times that, and he's got some processes that are pretty interesting. So you guys ought to check him out.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to your point. So you had to hit a turning point at some point where your business actually took that turn. So many of our guys out there, they're stuck in the truck. They can't work on their business because, like Gerber said, they're working in their business. What was your turning point?
I've had several. One of the first ones was that there was one time where I was driving, it's probably to a service call, 8:00 at night, because I'm still working. I worked ridiculous hours for many years. And the people who, these are my friends and my colleagues that worked with me, that I had hired to work with me, they would complain or moan about this or that. And that was the thing that really ate at me. It wasn't customers. It wasn't the work that was going on. It was just the people that worked with me, my coworkers. And so one night I just had enough, and I basically just fired myself as a manager. And I had a guy that had some management background, and he was running the phones and the dispatching and all that. Anything to do with the office, he was dealing with that. I called him up, and I'm like, I want to give you a $3 an hour raise. You take this off of my shoulder. I can't handle this, because I was running calls nonstop too, plus trying to deal with this, and it was really, like I said, that put more weight on me than almost anything else. So when he took that, it started, relieving some of the weight. That was just the beginning. But otherwise, I found myself, I think it was December 2012, the government was doing like a 30% rebate or something. Like if you installed a 16 SEER or higher, do you remember that, Pete?
I do. Yeah.
And so that December, I purchased a lot of equipment. I had a lot of people wait till the last minute to buy their systems to get this rebate because they had probably had looked at some preliminary taxes or something. But I wound up in January owing $12,000 to my supplier, and the money was not there. Like I did not have the money to pay it. So that's when I learned about overhead. I had went to a class that was put on by a gentleman named Bill Ligon, and he owns he still does consulting, but he has a program that he built, an Excel program called Profit Forecaster, and it just teaches you about the overhead in the different departments of your company. And so back then we just had installation department, service department. That was pretty much it. But once I learned that and adjusted my pricing, you probably see it with the people that you help too. That's one of the first things everybody can do is just raise their rates.
Yeah.
If you're struggling, there's no money left over.
Right.
So that was a huge turning point for me as well. And as silly as this sounds, offering options. I'd practically talk myself out of, not on service calls even, just on installs. I would say, you know what, Pete, I mean, it doesn't matter if you could just go 13 SEER. It's going to be way more efficient than what you got. And I would just talk you into a 13 SEER. And I kept, my closing rate was not any better, even though I was extremely cheap. And it's because I was losing sales to people offering 16, 17, 18, 20 SEER units for $6,000 more. So soon as I started offering options, I know that's elementary, but it wasn't to me. And when I did that, it made a big difference.
Yeah. We did that as well. And I think putting the efficiency together is kind of like, it's just like the trucks. If you, like you're saying, you have everything disorganized, you spend more time looking for the parts or tools that you need than it actually takes to go do the job. And we've all been there. Eventually you're going to learn to have your house in order. Well, it's the same thing on that business end. And what I hear you saying, I think, is you finally quit trying to do everything yourself, and you put the right employees in the right place and empower them to do the job for you. Is that the right? Would you say?
Absolutely. And I heard this from Russell Brunson, and I love this. And I'm going to steal it from him. Russell Brunson, he created ClickFunnels. If you're familiar with him,
I am familiar. Yes.
Yeah. So he says, I believe that's who said this, but he said, don't think about the how. Every time there's something new in our business and we have something new, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. We need to start tracking these numbers. Well, or, hey, when we go out on an install, we need a checklist. Okay. Maybe I just decided we need a checklist for quality control. Well, instead of sitting back and saying, well, how can I do this? And immediately taking on that responsibility, because that's something I always do. I'm like, okay, well, I need to build a checklist. It's always me. Yes. Instead of how, think who. Just change those letters around and start thinking who can build a checklist for me? Who can make sure this process gets implemented? And if everybody will start adopting that mindset in your HVAC business, I mean, the skies can be the limit. So
yeah, amen to that. Amen. Very well put. And I agree with that. Yeah, I know Brunson. I've actually used his product as well with my marketing. Yeah. So yeah, he's a bright guy. It's so interesting. So as we start to grow and you start to put the organization in, how are you finding these people? Because I'm always hearing it. We don't have any good people around here. We don't have any good people to pull from. What was your answer?
I had the same problem, and I think this keeps a lot of people from growing their business because they're always like, they're scared to hire somebody because what if we get slow and I can't keep them employed? But the thing is, everybody that I've ever worked with or talked with who just made the leap, took the leap of faith and went ahead and hired somebody, the business comes. It naturally comes. You're doing the right things. You're getting recommended, you start adding a few processes and stuff, the business will come. So stop worrying about that. But I waited for a long time because I was waiting for that person, that one guy who can just hit the ground running. And I had a hard time finding them. The ones that I've hired, me personally, have had no good experience with. They seem to have chips on their shoulders half the time. They don't want to listen. They're set in their ways. And I feel like I'm a pretty good leader with my team. And so is the rest of, I've got 2 other guys that help me lead the team. They're good leaders as well, but they just don't listen. So what we started doing is just hiring outside of the industry. And,
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because this is a lot of recognition, guys. I went through the same thing, but continue. I'm sorry.
So just hired outside of the industry, good personality, good character, good work ethic, and willing to learn, a willingness to learn. And they show up every day. If they can do that, we can take them the rest of the way. And so we started doing that. And the technicians that I have right now, a couple, like 2 of my really solid guys, they're guys that started from nothing with me, and they've been grown and built up to that. Well, now I have, 2 other guys, for instance, that are here by next summer, they're going to get their own van. So you just keep multiplying, and it's worked very well for us. So I would tell anybody to stop waiting for that perfect person, because in my area, they don't exist. I bet my area is not a whole lot different than yours. So just start growing them yourself.
Yeah, we used to say, "Can he fog a mirror?" Anyway, yeah.
Exactly.
There's a couple of ways to consider, the right person for the right job. And you're leaning heavily on that right person in terms of the right attitude, which is, I think that's probably 90% of it, at least 80. But the ability to communicate and things like this. But at some level, they have to have the technical aptitude. And I've hired people that just didn't measure up there, and ultimately had to let them go. And because at the end of the day, we're running a business. But that was usually much less frequent than just trying to teach somebody, trying to be able to take somebody with a bad attitude that had the technical skills and teach the other way. It was a lot easier. You could bring them along technically, even if they had, I had, Kelly, I'll just mention this real quick. I remember when I had my 2 service techs, my primary ones. One was a veteran, been around a long time, really good, had very few callbacks. Brought another kid in. He just finished the school, but he had a really good personality. He was, we brought him in, we started sending him out, and he just started doing what he did, and he had the callbacks. He wasn't that proficient, but the customers loved him. They wanted John. They wanted John back instead of old George. George got it done right, but they wanted John. Right. Yeah. So there you have it, right?
Yeah, we've all experienced that. One thing that first comes to memory is before I started my own company, there was a guy that super likable guy, and it seems like I've had a couple of guys that are really likable, that they just lack the, like, I hate to say it, but in the integrity, because it is going the extra step when no one's looking, to strap that wire back or whatever you need to be done on the service call. But they did lack some integrity, and it's unfortunate, because customers love them and they always want them back. No matter if it's the 4th time they need to go back, they still want them back, because they just like to visit with them.
I had, Kelly, this is sad. I won't mention name, but he's a student of mine. He said, "Pete, I don't know what to do. We have cameras in the house, and we work out of my garage mostly because we're small." And he says, one of my main guys, he goes in and we caught it on camera. He's looking through my stuff, and he puts one of my tools in his pocket, and it's gone. And he says, I really can't afford to confront him right now. We're in our season. If I fire him, what am I going to do? I'm like, I don't want to say his name. I'll just say Bill. I'm like, Bill, sure. Today he's stealing from you. Tomorrow he's stealing from your customer. What is that going to do to your bit? What's going to happen? You know what I'm saying? And we went down this path, and he started scratching his head. And so anyway, what he did, he didn't take a charge right, or take action right at that moment, but he went ahead and started getting the interviews lined up, finding a replacement person, brought him in,
Sure.
and took care of business. But
Yep.
but yeah, I could tell stories. In fact, we could share a few of them.
Oh yeah.
But I had one of my employees called, and the customer trusted us so much that they left their keys, and he's up going through, let's just say, the wrong drawer of the clothing section, and I found out about it, and I fired him, obviously. But
Yeah.
we know what people are capable of. We know what they show us, but it's so important to have people of integrity. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's so important.
Yeah. And it almost sounds like a bad word when I say it that way, because I really like these guys. Like these guys, like they're so personal, but they just weren't taking the extra time to make sure that we weren't having callbacks. And it's so we don't always have to. If you have somebody in your company, anybody watching this, and you're struggling with this, just like Pete said, I mean, it's like this is busy time. Like you need them. When you find a couple of different ways to start holding people accountable, because that was a big thing with us, is just the leadership. Normally you put a little pressure on them because you're just holding them accountable. If they're not right for you, chances are they'll crumble and they'll start looking for another job anyways. And you don't have to fire them. They'll be bringing you their 2-week notice before long, if they're just not making the cut. So
Sure. No, I'm just having flashbacks about those individuals. Yeah. I really wanted them to get their stuff together, because they had all this. I could see their potential, and they go south. And then the other ones that you never expect, right to the top sometimes. It just there's no rhyme or reason. But I guess we can't lose faith is the lesson, right? When we're dealing with employees.
Yeah. That's the problem too. I do see the potential in these guys, and I want them to, excel, especially with our company. And I want them to excel in all parts of their life, not just their career. I want their relationships to improve. I want their bank accounts to improve. I want all of this for them. And I do my best to try to communicate that to them. But some people just, they don't want that, they just want a job, or they're not willing to make some changes in their life. And anybody who's been like that in my company, they wind up just not being here for too much longer. So it's unfortunate.
I mean, what's bleeding through in your words are you obviously have a big heart. You're probably a great guy to work for. And I have so many, I'm working with a student out in New York. I call him the big teddy bear, and he's a great guy. And we're on one of these calls. We do our live consultations right through this type of platform. And he takes the call. He said, "Hang on a minute, Pete." And he answers this call. I'm watching his employee just walk on him, and then he goes, there you go. And so I think the lesson is, to your point, some people, they're gonna step on their own toes, and they're in their own way. You can only show them the door. And you can even open it up for them a little bit, but at some point, if they're just not willing to take that initiative and better themselves, I'm so glad to hear you say you want them to be successful in life. You want them to be successful on a personal level. That's awesome. That's awesome, Kelly. And so many business owners out there, and I've worked with these types too, are just me. You're fired. You're next. You're this. You're that. That's no good either, right? So it's that balance, I think.
Yeah, it's hey, when they improve. That's what I've learned with like personal development stuff. When I was I've been in a dark place with this business. We're 11 years in business now. I've been through dark times where I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes no matter what's going on in our lives, we can feel that way, and so my job is to help them start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel in all aspects of their life. And because that's when I found personal development. And when I started applying the success principles and lessons that I've learned, things started to improve. And so, we spend a deal of time talking about those and helping people improve, because we know that when they improve, our company will improve.
Yeah, I love that. That and I mean, I think you're speaking to that really well, because obviously you keep bringing up outside experts, people that you're going to for your personal improvement, and you're implementing that in the industry and not just sticking to industry experts. Because I mean, we've all seen these guys that I've done this and I've done that, and you can too, whatever. Yes. But in the real world, you and I know, I mean, it takes that internal shift. It takes something a little deeper, right? So
you got to have that burning desire,
right?
To get to, that's going to drive you past, and it's so cliche nowadays. You got to have a why. It's really cliche. I feel silly almost saying it, which I shouldn't, but you really do. You really got to know, what are you fighting for every day, and I'm fighting for the livelihood of everyone on my team, and so I can, provide a better life for my family. So.
That's a good one. There was a point, when I started my business, I mean, I was literally one truck, no customers.
Same.
I started during the recession. Now it was like, boom, I just moved. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And so you're out there. And so what I did is I had a picture of my 3 children, and it was on the visor. And before every call, I would look at that picture, and that was my why as well. And, a lot of these guys are out there, they get stuck at that size. Now, you've gotten through there. I don't know if you know the statistics. You probably do. You probably can tell me. But the vast, I think it was 7 out of 10 HVAC startups won't make it past their 5th year anniversary. Of those that do, the majority of those won't make it past 10. Well, you're past 11. Right. So you've obviously made it over the hump, and you're gonna be, already are, successful now. So obviously that's been a struggle for you, and you're trying to help others. But what is it about helping these other people that makes you passionate enough to go out there on top of your business to go do this on the side, and podcasts and YouTubes and all of these different things that you're doing? What's inspiring you?
It was the pain. It was the pain. I know there's people that have found this and are watching this, they're in pain. And that pain can, I always say that, when the pain of change becomes less than the pain that we're going through right now, that's when we'll actually make a change.
Amen.
So it becomes easier to go ahead and make the change than to stay where we're at and just stay in this pain. So I was just in such a bad place for so long, and didn't have anybody like myself who offered any services for a reasonable price to help me move my business forward. Everybody was so expensive, and they're still expensive today. So I'm kind of on a mission for it.
Sure.
I want to help a lot of business owners. So and you're a man after my heart. You're after my own heart because of your mission and what you're doing, helping business owners, because you've been through, we making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, we do. But with what I want to pause and go back just a half a step there, because you mentioned something. When the pain of what you're doing is more painful than the pain it takes to get the change done, then we're pushed over. Now, I think the vast majority of us, when we hit that point, that's enough motivation to get us over, and maybe reach out and get help, or do whatever it takes to get to that next, to make that shift. But I continue to interact with HVAC business owners, even employees, that continue to self-inflict their own wounds, but they don't feel the pain enough to make the change. They desire the result, but they don't have that initial intense right now burning motivation that's going to get me to the next step. Are you doing something, and I don't want to throw you a curveball here, because this is kind of out of left field. How do we get these people who don't have that pain to take action? And most of it is self-delusion. They think my business is fine. I don't need coaching. I don't need training. I don't need help from you guys. Been around, sure, you beat the odds, but I'm doing just fine.
Right.
And it's kind of like that homeowner that says my air conditioning unit's running fine.
Right.
Cold air. That's all it's doing fine. If you look at it, it's like they used to do these back in the day. They used to do these one picture jokes, and it was a furnace, And inside of it was a time bomb going tick, 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 tick. And
yeah.
the homeowner was leaning on there and says, yeah, this baby's still ticking. It's been 30 years. But nowhere, right? So it's getting ready to blow. So
yeah.
I think that's us a lot of times. We have this confidence that comes with a little bit of success. Next thing you know, yeah, I own my own business. I know what I'm doing. But there's a problem there. And they won't look it in the face until it grows and grows and grows. And it manifests in all these different financial problems and or that those shoulder work where there's nothing to do, you know, and you have to send guys home and you even losing employees. Yeah. You have a thought on that?
Well, my first thought is that I totally understand that because this is kind of my realm too. And this is what I see. I do believe that the egos are a little too big. They don't feel like it's they don't want to take advice because they just think that they know that they believe that they're doing it the right way, when some tweaks and changes can completely change their lives, you know? And so this is a struggle that I have too. And one of the best things that I could say, and this may sound harsh and a little mean, but if you do have a problem, like for one, you know, the P&L, that is your scorecard as an owner.
Right.
So if you are not winning on that scorecard in a major way, then as far as your why goes, you know, how do you really love your kids? You know, you used to talk, you were just saying about looking at your kids before you go into a service call. Well, if you're that business owner and you're not, do your kids not deserve special things in life? Does your wife not deserve a better home, a better quality of life? Do your employees, do they not deserve more benefits and more pay? Do they not, you know, you got to ask yourself these questions. If you're not doing what needs to be done so they can have what you want them to have, then you need to look yourself in the mirror and you know, take responsibility for what you're doing or the results that you're not getting.
Yeah, and I think that takes a hard look in the mirror, but the fact remains that we don't see it. I can give you here's a little example. I remember I worked for a guy, and he was teaching me to the next level. And I'd go out I went on a call, and I call him. We used the radios back then. This was back before cell phones. And I'd say, hey, boss, you know, I've got this problem. He says, well, what are your pressures? And I'd tell him my pressures. He says, well, what is this? And I said, well, I haven't checked that. And what is that? Oh, I haven't checked that. And go check that and come back. And he kept doing that to me. And I went to call him one time, and I said, you know what? I'm going to show that son of a gun, and I'm going to check all this stuff. So I checked the low pressure, the high pressure, the superheat, the subcooling, the drop across the coil, and you know, compressor amp draw versus the rated load amps, you know, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, before I even got done, I found the problem. So I said, well, I'll show him next time. And I just started doing all these measurements. Yeah. And before you know it, I could see what the system was doing better. You mentioned the P&L, you know, and so we're not using gauges for these measurements. We're using these financial measurements. And there's things like KPIs for those of you out there who aren't quite familiar with this. They're called key performance indicators. And that's pretty much an example of what kind of things should look like versus, you know, so that you've got something to compare with. So if you know, like on a 92 degree outdoor day with a, I don't know, 80 degree return, what your suction discharge pressures ought to look like, kind of based on the experience. And if they're way out of whack, you know, because you've got a point of reference. So the financials are kind of like that for us as well. But to your point, I'm on Facebook a good bit, and there's a lot of groups, and the arrogance is just, I don't know what to do other than, just let it go and hang around and wait for somebody who says help, and just be there. I guess that's all we can do, right? I don't know.
I'm in the exact same boat you are, Pete. I mean, it's and I see it everywhere. I'm in a lot of groups too, and I see it. I mean, they just don't get it. And it's almost daily that somebody, you can tell they're about to reach a breaking point. They'll post something in there about how, you know, that this guy's leaving or you know, they're not sure, like they'll just spill their heart out, saying that their wife's about to leave them or whatever. And I just feel so bad for these guys, but I won't post on that post. I just won't, because everybody will just chew you alive because they just think they know it all. And I will never claim to know it all ever. I'm happy to be a learner. And I wish that we could somehow shift our culture in the HVAC industry, especially as business owners, into a learning culture. We all need to learn from each other. So,
yeah, and I think we need to. I think a lot of times, and this is what this is what our focus on is sometimes we think that our internal values are somehow painted on our face, and we go in and try to interact as a business, and we don't really do what's necessary to be successful, and we start to get these rejections. We're not getting the closing ratios, or we're not getting the jobs, or we're not getting the repeat business. They're not calling us back. And, I'm a nice guy, do good work, and I used to make a joke about it. The air conditioner is just as happy as can be, but the customer, if they're not happy, you ain't coming back,
right.
But we're stuck in our own head. I'm the best technician that equipment has ever had the blessing to have me touch, because I'm so good. And maybe a lot of these guys are, but it just doesn't matter. It's like George and John I was telling you about. George was great. The equipment was happy, but it was John that they kept calling back because he understood that side of the business. So there's more than one side. There's a lot to this thing.
Oh yeah.
As to have gotten to the point that you're at today, there's a lot more to that. Yeah. So
yeah, like I said earlier about the service side of it, if all you want to do, and I get it, and I've explained this in other things that I've done, whether it be my YouTube channel or whatever. But the thing is we love to repair stuff. We're a service technician, right? I mean, that's our mindset. How this thing is broke, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to come in here and save the day and fix it.
Right.
But that's also me making a decision for the customer. And once we stop doing that as a business owner, and start letting the customer decide. Oh, I was just going to say, I give an example. Like, what if you went and bought a car and it's this color and it's got these cool rims on it. It's got a great stereo and everything. And then your sister goes and buys that same car, and she's got a sunroof, and she's got the advanced stereo, and she's got autopilot or whatever. She's got the cool rims. Well, that was available to you, but you find out that the salesman never offered it to you. But you didn't know you wanted it until you saw that your sister bought it. Well, that's a great example that if people may not know that they want a new system if you don't tell them about it. So, it's and then you just leave it up to them.
Yeah, it does take I'm going to throw an example at you as well. And I love Joe, and Joe Crisara. I'm using his all the time because he refers to kind of a good, better, best, but he calls it premium, mid-range, and economy. Yeah. And so the example he used, and I loved it. I use this all the time now, is you're pulling up the gas pump and you're putting in that, I think it's minimum 87 octane, I believe it is. You put in the low end fuel, and the people that buy that, they buy that fuel, they're like, why would anybody pay that amount for gas for 91, 93 octane, right? And that's their mindset. On the other side of the pump, here's somebody pulling in with their vehicle, and they're putting in the premium, and they're looking over there and saying, why would anybody put that crap in their car? And I think people have a different buying style. And if you don't open yourself up to that and say, listen, we've got these nice options. Look, you've got a system that's 10 years old. This is just an example. I'm just making this up. And it uses the old Honeywell non-communicating type controls. And that technology is about 30 years old, 40 years old, right? So what we'd like to do is bring you up to speed. We've got some new Wi-Fi options. We can upgrade the whole system, and we can bring you right into your smartphone, and you don't have to replace your whole system yet. It's only 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever it is. And, that might seem like an extreme to a service technician. Why would I sell them that? But if it's a good app, look it over. If it's a good offer, then perhaps that's a good thing to do in order to give the power of choice to your customer. I heard it said this way: people love to buy, but they do hate to be sold. So don't try and sell them. Just give them options, right?
Absolutely.
And you know that's
make it their decision.
Kelly, you're awesome. You're awesome. Listen, I know the guys are going to want to know more about your podcast. They want to know how to get a hold of you. What's a good way for them to reach out to you? I put a couple of things over here on the wall based on what you had sent me. I did not put your email account. I'm going to put that up.
That's okay.
What is that? And I'm going to put that up on this point on the video.
Just HVACmillionaire@gmail.com. If you ever have any questions about anything, you're welcome to reach me at that email. I check it, at least a couple times a day, and I get it on my phone. So if you want to learn more about the service side or the, growing your business well past $1 million, you're welcome to check out the course at HVACserviceready.com. The podcast is HVAC Uncensored. Check that out. We've been doing that for a little while now. I'm the co-host of that, Gil Cavey. He's a buddy of mine that lives in the Baltimore area. And so other than that, you can check out my books on Amazon. Pete listed
about that. Yeah, the books. That's awesome.
One of them I have right here that I've been out of books at my office, and I've still got a box of 75 because I bought way too many. So,
yeah, I hear you. Well, let's get those in the right hands. Busyness to Business. I love that title. That's a great idea. Did you think of that, or is that your wife thought of that one? Be honest.
It was me, and it was 18 lessons to turn your business into what you intended to create.
Right. Now, on your podcast, it's HVAC Uncensored Podcast. I heard a little bit of a buzz about something. It was the top 8 things that HVAC contractors fail at, or something like that lead to failure. How was that? I don't remember.
I can't remember the exact name of it. I'd have to look it up, but it's basically the top 8 things that cause HVAC business failure. That was a really popular one, and you'll learn a lot from that podcast just because we cover a lot of the things to avoid in your business. So
sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot.
There's a lot. And even if you think you know it all, and let me tell you guys, I've been doing this for 37 years. Sometimes I think I know it all. I'm going to check out the podcast myself because, guys, we're all learning from each other. Humble yourself, learn, get a coach, get a trainer, get a little bit of help, get to the next level, or let your family be satisfied at where you are right now. And and Kelly, I'm sure you can speak to this as well. I get guys that call me right before summer and their best guy just quit. What do I do? Or I get guys that call me. I just spent all my money on refrigerator magnets. I don't have any work. I passed them out on all these neighborhoods. Nobody's calling me. What do I do? Don't let it get to this level. Get help.
Right. Yes.
Check out people like Kelly and some of these other ones. And
that is so crazy that you say that, because the people who reach out to me, typically they find me on YouTube and I'll get an email, and they're literally like, like their house is being foreclosed. I'm not saying this like it's literally happening, but it's like, you don't wait till your house is being foreclosed on and to actually start taking action to do something about it, right? I mean, you knew 3 months ago that this was going downhill, that you weren't going to be able to make that payment. But it's so crazy. You're totally right on that. People reach out at the very last minute. Don't wait. Reach out now. If you don't have a coach, a mentor, somebody who's doing what it is that you do it. And if it's not me, I always say this, if it's not me, call Pete. If it's not Pete, call Joe. If it's not Joe, call just find somebody to help you, because that's what they're out there to do, to help you succeed.
And the crazy thing is, your return on investment is almost immediately. I mean, let's say you took a thousands of dollar course, and first thing you do is you go out and you sell a system for more money than you ever have before in your life, which I did on my first sales training class ever. I never sold anything to this level before in my life. Went out, followed the system, offered it, shut my mouth, just like the guy told me, put my ink pen down. The guy looked at me, looked at his wife, he looked at me, looked at the paper, he looked back at me. He said, Pete, I was bound and determined to get at least 3 estimates, but you were just so thorough. Let me sign that right now. I never sold one at that level. Best training I had ever taken up to that point. Am I right?
It blows your mind. Yeah, totally right. It will pay for itself. It will pay for itself. So just go get it. I will never, and I had some of these organizations, they make you sign a 2-year a 2-year contract, and I'm totally cool with that. But if one organization doesn't have what you thought it was going to have or what it needs, well, then just make the transition once your contract's up and to another organization. And that's what I did. I switched to a different organization once my contract was up. But I don't ever see myself ever again in business going without a coach or a mentor. I won't. I'm going to continue to pay, mentors and coaches and keep learning.
Let me interject a really key point, because we were just about to wind down, but you touched on something that's so important. Guys, listen, you're one truck. You have no employees. You're trying to get to that next level. And I see the programs where these big companies will fly you out, or you fly out, you pay these courses, you stay there for a week, they're cheerleading and they're doing all these spectacular things, but you can't leave your business. Who's going to do the work? You can't afford that level of training class, plus the airfare, plus the lodging, plus the food, but most importantly, the time away from work. You can't do that. And we understand that. That's why we're doing it like this these days. Do you know that you can have a full-time consultant after work, that you can take something you learn in the evening and the very next day go out and implement it and get an immediate return on your investment? We're in a different age now, guys. So just be aware of that, to Kelly's point. Right.
100%. 100%. You can't afford the big guys right now. You're one truck, two trucks, 3 trucks. You probably can't afford the big guys right now. But there's people out there, there's all kinds of people out there. You just have to search and find them and invest in them so you can get to the next level. And if you want to keep going, or you run out of coaches and they're the next on your list, well, check them out,
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Okay. So with that, listen, guys, thank you for attending in. Give Kelly a call. Service HQ, he's over at HVACserviceready.com, or you can check him out at HVAC Uncensored Podcast.com. This is Pete Ramsey at HVAC Greatness Podcast. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for hanging in there with us, and we'll see you then.
Hey, it's Pete. A quick thank you for joining me today on HVAC Greatness, or maybe just letting me keep you company as you're out running about. Either way, I sincerely hope that you picked up on something today that might help you and your business progress on your journey to HVAC Greatness. Want more? Make sure we stay on the air. Share the podcast with a friend, rate and review it, and be sure to subscribe to our email list at HVACGreatness.com so that you don't miss anything. This is Pete Ramsey signing out and reminding you why your customers love your business and what makes your company great. In one word, you. So let's keep refining your already good image and make it truly great.